Hi, everybody. This is Drew Tomlin from the Association for Middle Level Education, and I am joined today by Dr. James Davis. Dr. Davis is an associate professor and program coordinator at High Point University in High Point, North Carolina, where he works with the elementary, middle grades, and educational leadership departments. And for his work, he's been named both a Teacher of the Year and a Principal of the Year, which is no small feat. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Davis. Appreciate your time.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And obviously, not only are you doing all that work at High Point University, but you're also the author of this wonderful article that everyone's checking out here in AMLE magazine entitled Assessing Assessments, 6 Useful Strategies for Any Middle School Classroom. So thank you so much for bringing this great content to our attention, and we wanted to talk to you just a little bit more about it. So I'm going to kick it right off, and that is what inspires you about assessment? Some people might not find it that inspiring. What inspires you about it, and why is it such a critical topic to explore, particularly in the middle grades?
I think particularly in the middle grades, assessment is important, as we're all aware. I think formative assessment specifically gives your most effective teachers that snapshot that they need to really see what students are learning on a daily basis, and then most importantly, use those assessments to kind of guide their instruction. All good educators know it's far more than just a grade, and when we've got these formative assessments that guide our instruction and then purposeful summative assessment, the information really just gives effective teachers the most valuable information to move kids forward at a quick pace, to cover the material in a meaningful way, and again, impact the daily quality of education, student growth, the achievement gap. It's just a win-win for students and teachers.
Absolutely. So using that formative assessment to help students the best that we possibly can. And you've done in your article, it's like you've said in the title, 6 useful strategies. There are 6, and they are turnkey solutions that anybody can use. So for many of the strategies that you provide for us, there's a social element too. So students can talk to each other, develop and share responses. Why is that social aspect so important to young adolescents and to the world of assessment as well? So where does social stuff fit
in? So with middle schoolers, we all know that they have to have that social component. I'm reminded of a time when I shadowed a middle school student, and I was a principal, and I shadowed from start to finish, and throughout the entire 7-hour day, I was allowed to talk 11 minutes throughout the 7 hours. And that's just not a best practice in our most effective classrooms. Working, talking, collaborating, it's a good school skill, but it's also a good life skill. As students are talking, it's not just about allowing them the chance to talk. It's about they get to talk, they get to listen, they get to hear other opinions, they get to start modeling their own answers after the input and assessment of peers. So that collaborative part, the social part, again, it's just something that benefits teachers because I can hear what students are saying, I can provide feedback, I can tweak things that go along with teaching and learning. But then again, students have the chance to verbalize, listen, speak, write, and assess themselves and others. It's just one of those things that makes the school day more fun, but more importantly, more effective when you've got that purposeful assessment with that speaking component.
There you go. And it makes me think of those 21st century C's that a lot of people talk about with the collaboration, critical thinking, communication, creating. So that communication piece is, like you said, not just part of the assessment world that we need to make sure our students are involved in, but in the world beyond the schoolhouse. So that social aspect isn't just a touchy-feely kind of give them that chance to talk, but it's a skill that that our young adolescents need to have, and that we as adults grow from as well. So yeah, spot on with that, and you're right, assessment needs to involve that social part. So with all of this, the research that you do and these strategies that have these great solutions, what do you think is holding us back from using these active assessment strategies more prevalently? And then after identifying those challenges, how do we cross those hurdles? What do you think?
So I think you bring up a good point in that with your last statement, you talked about teachers, they think that it's just touchy-feely. And if when you're planning your assessments, if you find yourself saying or reflecting and thinking this is just touchy-feely, we've really got to be more purposeful. We've got to create our classrooms and our assessments and our tasks to model, again, success in school and then success outside of school. So I think part of it is educating and breaking the mentality of this is a touchy-feely activity. I think as I've listened to teachers and administrators outside of that, I think that time is always an issue. We have plates, and plates get full, and things fall off of our plates. So often we unintentionally fail to take the time to plan meaningful assessments, again, where kids are speaking and listening and talking. And then the third and final piece is I think that it comes from a place of caring, but it's hard to relinquish control if you're not normally used to doing that. Some of us, it's just how we teach and it's how we facilitate learning. You know, I talk and share, and then you do your part, and we move forward, and it's this collaborative relationship back and forth. But if you're not comfortable initially with relinquishing that control or training your students so that they can handle that in the classroom in an appropriate, purposeful manner, I think I won't say it scares, but it steers educators away from those meaningful types of assessments.
Right. So being able to, like you said, relinquish that control, that is really essential. It can be very hard to do because it demands trust, right? Trust of your students that they are going to be able to socialize and discuss things in the best way possible. So yeah, I think that's that control part. Interesting. That may be what's holding us back. So from a school-wide perspective, so we talked about how teachers can make this kind of assessment happen in their classes. What are some school-wide things that school administrators can do to come alive in this way?
So I think one of the first pieces is to educate and train teachers. I think that a lot of times teachers see the value in assessments and they want to relinquish that control. I think that oftentimes what I've seen is a teacher goes into a room and they try this assessment and this collaborative assignment, and it doesn't go exactly as planned, so they abandon it. And
right.
What we've got to do is work with this tiered approach. You don't go in and give them 100% of the class. You go in and you start with 20% of the class, and you model the expectation, and you teach them what it looks like, again, to speak, listen, collaborate with your peers. And when they have that first tier mastered, then we move into 40% of the class, 60% of the class. But again, we don't walk in and give them 100%, and then they struggle with it, and then we get frustrated and move backwards. It's got to be a tiered approach. I think the second thing is that I think our leaders, assistant principals, teacher leaders, we have to get back into the classrooms. You know, there's this misconception of I become a principal and I may do a model lesson or two a year, when really you should be an administrator that creates your schedule and works your time so that you are a true instructional leader, which is one of those phrases, you know, that people toss around all the time. But you can't be an instructional leader without being in the classroom, modeling the expectation. Again, these things with assessments, using it not just as an activity, but as an activity that's good for students and good for teachers, and then most importantly, guides our instructions. We come back the next day and we modify our groups, or we modify our questioning, or we spend less time or more time. But that modeling piece combined with that educational piece is easy to say and then hard to do, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I gotta say, everything that you said was so spot on. And in fact, one piece that resonated with me in particular and echoed something that was said on a webinar last week by Dr. Ann McCarty at Bowling Green City Schools. And she gave the advice to all middle level leaders to don't start your day in your office. You need to be out in the hallways and in the classrooms, and you're exactly right. Just like what you said, you got to create your schedule so you are in classes as an instructional leader, not just by paying lip service to that, but actually putting your feet on the ground and going into instructional spaces. So yeah, bravo to that. All right, so I think that you're clearly an advanced learner, Dr. Davis. So are you ready for the final metaphorical question?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. See, that's without hesitation. I knew you would do it. So if assessment was a food for middle level education, what kind of food would it be and why?
I think if I were to think, metaphorically speaking, of a food, I would have to compare assessment to that of fruit. And whenever I think of the pyramid chart, I think assessment is much like servings of fruit. Fruit is healthy, and fruit is needed on a daily basis. And I think we need fruit in several different forms all day long. And much like assessment, assessment is not one more thing to do. Assessment, like fruit, is healthy, and we need it daily, and we need different servings and different kinds. I think it makes a fruit makes for a healthier person, and I think when you're very purposeful and specific and differentiated with your assessment, that also provides for a healthier teacher, a healthier student. It really goes back to that win-win. You eat fruit, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. You have that quality assessment. There's no disputing evidence. If we have quality assessments on a regular basis, it helps us and our students get to where we want to be in a quicker, smoother, higher quality fashion. So if that makes sense, assessment and fruit, metaphor.
Yeah. Totally makes sense to me. That makes so much sense. And fruit, like you said, fruit is not something that should be a nice to do or a nice to have with a meal. It should be a must have, right? And it can complement any meal that you serve up. Assessment should be seen as a necessity and not just a nicety. No matter how you slice it up, or if you make it a smoothie, or if you just take the whole thing and just crunch it, fruit and assessment can be very appealing.
Well said, sir. Very well said.
There you go. Well, thank you for giving us that food for thought, not only in that final question, Dr. Davis, but in this entire article. So not only 6 useful strategies, as we said before, that are turnkey strategies that anyone can use in their classroom, but even more food for thought about the power of assessment and how it can empower both teachers and students. So thank you so much for the article and for everything you do.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, and AMLE. I appreciate you a great deal.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, AMLE Magazine readers, for checking out the article and this hangout here with Dr. Davis here at AMLE, where we reach every student, grow professionally, and create great schools.